Good evening. This is the news tonight, your daily roundup of all that has happened across India and the world. I'm Ishan Russell, and today we'll be focusing on US President Barack Obama's India visit, which has prompted a massive security step up. This and more over the next half hour. First, the headlines we're tracking right now. Nobel laureate Paul Krugman's thumbs up for India as he signals a second global economy led by China and India taking shape at the Global Business Summit. Home Minister Rajnath Singh slams Pakistan on terror, says it has failed to check the menace being exported from its soil, assures security in place will overcome the terror threat for Obama's visit. 9 more censor board members quit a day after the body's chief quit over alleged government interference. Claimed government's attitude to the CBFC was cavalier and dismissive. And terror alerts sounded across Europe with more than 20 suspects arrested in Belgium, France and Germany. Troops have already been deployed in France and Belgium. At our top story, just days ahead of US President Barack Obama's visit to India, Home Minister Rajnath Singh has slammed Pakistan for failing to check terror emanating from its soil, despite befitting replies by India on several occasions. Meanwhile, security has been beefed up ahead of Obama's visit.
पाकिस्तान अपनी हरकतों से बाज नहीं आ रहा है और बार-बार मात खाने के बावजूद भी अपनी हरकतों से बाज नहीं आ रहा है, लेकिन धमकी का भारत के ऊपर कोई असर नहीं है.
India is on high alert ahead of US President Barack Obama's visit to the country. Home Minister Rajnath Singh has said adequate security arrangements are being put in place for Obama's visit in the backdrop of intelligence inputs of threats by militant groups to strike soft targets in Jammu and Kashmir. An alert has also been issued of possible terror strikes by terrorists at shopping areas, hospitals and schools.
यहाँ सुरक्षा की दृष्टि से जितनी मुकम्मल व्यवस्था की जा सकती है, वो मुकम्मल व्यवस्था हम लोगों ने अपनी तरफ से करने की भरपूर कोशिश की है.
Security threats apart, the government is also facing opposition from political parties, with the left parties sharpening their attack over its alleged pro-US policies and US interference in India's internal affairs. The 6 left parties have condemned Obama's visit on Republic Day as imperialist aggression and plan to hold a protest on the 24th of January, a day before Obama lands in New Delhi.
On the eve of the visit of Mr. Barack Obama, it is a protest against visit. It is a protest against the policies of Narendra Modi government.
Meanwhile, there's unprecedented security in and around Agra ahead of President Obama's visit to the city on the 27th of January. The Agra Police, District Administration and teams from the centre are fine-tuning preparations for the visit.
विशेष रूप से ये पेट्रोलिंग कारें हैं, गश्त व्यवस्था है, पिकेट्स हैं, वाहनों को रोक करके समय-समय पर चेकिंग है, इस तरह से सारी व्यवस्थाएं, सभी पहलुओं को दृष्टिगत रखते हुए कड़ी जो है सुरक्षा व्यवस्था की गई है.
The Delhi High Court meanwhile came down hard on the government for installing 15,000 CCTV cameras within weeks for the US President's upcoming visit, but failing to act fast when it comes to meeting the needs of the citizens. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
Following Leela Sampson's resignation as chairperson of the Censor Board on Friday, 9 members put in their papers today. They've resigned, protesting what they claim is the cavalier and dismissive manner in which the board is treated by the government.
The raging controversy over the clearance given to the film MSG Messenger of God has forced the resignations of 9 more members of the Central Board of Film Certification or the Censor Board. In a letter to the I&B Ministry, the 9 members Arundhati Nag, Ira Bhaskar, Laura Prabhu, Pankaj Sharma, Rajiv Masand, Shekhar Babu Kancherla, Shaji Karun, Shubhra Gupta and T.G. Tyagarajan claim that since the time they first joined the board, they had been seeking some critical reforms. But despite several meetings, not even a single positive step had been taken by the ministry.
दिसंबर 2013 में हमने मिनिस्टर को एक चिट्ठी लिखी थी, जिसमें बहुत सारी लंबी चिट्ठी थी, 6-7 पेजों की चिट्ठी थी, जिसमें हमने कई सारे मुद्दे हमने उठाए थे और ये कहा था कि हम गवर्नमेंट के साथ काम करने के लिए तैयार हैं. जो वीकनेसेस हैं, जो लूप होल्स हैं सिस्टम में, उसको हम भरें, हम उसको एड्रेस करें और हम इंस्टीट्यूशन को स्ट्रांग बनाएं.
दिस एंटायर सेंसर बोर्ड वाज अपॉइंटेड बाय यूपीए गवर्नमेंट. The fact that the UPA government did not act on their suggestions, based on which these people did not feel strong enough at all to resign when the UPA government was there. They have quoted this letter and resigned now in January of 2015 is ironical.
INB Minister Arun Jaitley rejected the former censor board members' allegations of interference and corruption and called them rebels without a cause. He also accused the UPA appointees of politicizing the issue.
This has never happened in India. Not one person, for some personal reason. The entire censor board members collectively has submitted the resignation. That shows that this government is not allowing the functioning of the independent institutions.
कोई निराधार आरोप है, इसमें तथ्य नहीं है। पूरी तरह इस बोर्ड का कार्यकाल तो पूरा ही था, उन्होंने खुद बताया।
जो बहुत दुर्भाग्यपूर्ण घटना है वो ये कि देश की एक और स्वायत्त संस्था को खत्म करने की कोशिश की जा रही है, एक और ऑटोनोमस इंस्टीट्यूशन को दरकिनार किया जा रहा है।
In the midst of a raging controversy, the Punjab government has decided to put a ban on the screening of the movie. The action has been taken following reports of tension after the trailers of the movie became public. High alerts have been sounded in Punjab and Haryana after protests were staged in Haryana and Delhi against the movie. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
The two-day Global Business Summit came to a close today with economists from around the world raising viewpoints and discussions on the state of the global economy. A feature of the summit has been a largely positive sentiment for the Indian economy and the potential of the India-US relationship. A thumbs up for India, Nobel laureate Paul Krugman's verdict as he announced the demise of US taper tantrums and a second global economy led by China and India taking shape. India is definitely a country of the future, if not the definitive country of the future, Krugman said. He added, China has too little consumption and too much investment. India has no such problem. Krugman said, China scares me, India on the other hand shows promise. The chief economic advisor to the government, Arvind Subramaniam, who addressed the summit, stressed on the need for large-scale economic reforms with a special focus on exports if India is to catch up with China's growth rate. On the US-India economic relationship, Subramaniam said India could benefit from the US economic growth.
The cliche about, the people-to-people relationship is strong, but the rest of the relationship, especially the government has been, wanting in many areas. That cliche is absolutely true. And so that's one key aspect to take away. The second, I think, is that the potential is unrealized fundamentally because it's an asymmetric relationship. Let's be honest. The US is the world's largest economy, not in PPP terms, but in market exchange rate terms. And India is much smaller, per capita GDP much lower. And so this is an asymmetric relationship. And it can only be rectified, frankly, by Indian growth of 8% for the next 2 to 3 decades. As a great Indian statesman puts it, India's best foreign economic policy is domestic growth of 8% for India. Then I want to touch upon the short run. I think rising US growth is actually, on balance, good for India. But I think in the medium run, I worry that the pattern of US growth, especially what I call in my book the beleaguered middle class problem, I think that's going to limit the positive impact of the United States on the world and in India in particular.
Subramaniam said US growth would be good for India at least in the short term. He also termed the India-US relationship on the FDI front as deeply symbiotic despite the differences in size of the two economies.
The US is the largest source of FDI for India, measured over a certain period of time. But the interesting thing is that India also exports FDI to the US. So it's kind of a two-way flow of FDI, which kind of confounds the pattern of specialization internationally, because you don't expect poor countries like India to actually be exporting FDI, and you don't expect countries like India to be exporting FDI to much richer countries than itself. And this is a kind of interesting aspect of the US-India relationship. And this two-way FDI, of course, opens up interesting possibilities for bilateral investment cooperation.
On day one of the Global Economic Summit on Friday, the Prime Minister had spoken of major economic reforms including GST, a focus on mass production and correction in governance systems to take the Indian economy to new levels. The Union Budget later this month will be the first real test of how much can be put into action. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV. 32 years after the project was sanctioned, the first indigenously built light combat aircraft, Tejas, was finally handed over by Defence Minister Manohar Parrikar to the Indian Air Force today. The handover signals the start of a process of induction of the fighters being built at home under a project which has already cost the Exchequer nearly 8,000 crore rupees. The entire project by the DRDO and Hindustan Aeronautics Limited is estimated to cost over 30,000 crores. The aircraft that has been handed over has got initial operational clearance too, which signifies that Tejas is airworthy in different conditions. The final operational clearance is expected by the end of the year. Some political news now, and the temperature of the politics in Delhi is soaring with each passing day. Amid promises of good governance, trusted leadership and free Wi-Fi, parties are sparing no chance of hitting out with each other.
As elections in Delhi draw near, the war of words between parties is getting louder, with everyone accusing the other of making false promises. Days after being appointed the Congress's campaign chief for Delhi, Ajay Markan launched a frontal attack on both BJP and the Aam Aadmi Party on Saturday.
लगातार बोल करके अन्ना हजारे साहब के पीठ के ऊपर बैठ करके जो लोग अपनी राजनीतिक मंशा को, सिर्फ दबी हुई राजनीतिक मंशा को चमकाने के लिए जनता को गुमराह करने में लगातार लगे रहे, आज हम उनसे इस एफिडेविट दिखा करके ऐसे लोगों से पूछना चाहते हैं कि आप जनता को क्यों और कब तक गुमराह करते रहेंगे.
But with Kiran Bedi at the helm now, the BJP seems unperturbed by the opposition attacks. In fact, the party has already begun the task of wooing voters. While party president Amit Shah met leaders from the Dalit community seeking their support, newly inducted leader Kiran Bedi revealed the 6-point formula to solve the problems of the national capital.
पॉलिसी पैरालिसिस में सरकार को बाहर निकालने की बात हो, योजना आयोग को भंग कर सभी राज्यों को समाहित करते हुए नीति आयोग बनाने की बात हो, और चाहे मंगलयान भेजने की बात हो, हर बात को सरकार ने अच्छे तरीके से कर जनता में एक विश्वास का वातावरण बनाया.
घर घर में माँ बाप का रोल, हर स्कूल में प्रिंसिपल्स का रोल, पुलिस का अपना रोल, पॉलिटिशियन का रोल हम उसको ऑक्यूपाई करेंगे. प्रिजन्स और प्रोसिक्यूशंस दिल्ली सरकार की है, और प्रेस आप हैं, आपको इनवाइट किया जाएगा, बल्कि आप सुनेंगे, मीडिया सुनेगी सरकार क्या कह रही है.
The Aam Aadmi Party suffered a setback on Saturday as the Election Commission served a notice to its chief Arvind Kejriwal. The poll panel has sought Kejriwal's reply on his defamatory comments against BJP's Delhi chief Satish Upadhyay.
चुनाव आयोग ने अगर कोई नोटिस जारी किया है तो उसका हम जवाब देंगे. सतीश उपाध्याय जी के मामले में जो भी हमारे पास तथ्य है, साक्ष्य है, प्रमाण है, उसको हम देंगे, चुनाव आयोग के सामने रखेंगे.
Kejriwal had leveled serious allegations against BJP leader Satish Upadhyay and Ashish Sood, alleging that they were part of a company that supplied faulty electricity meters to power discoms in Delhi. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
Let's now get you all the national news and updates in nationwide. There's been no headway even a year after Sunanda Pushkar died in New Delhi's hotel room. The Delhi police had filed a murder FIR on the 6th of January after the post-mortem revealed that it was death due to poisoning. Over the last week, the police have indicated that they're likely to question Shashi Tharoor in the case. 24 children, including 8 girls, will receive the National Bravery Awards for 2014. 4 of the awards will be given posthumously. Among them, the Bharat Award has been conferred on 16-year-old Reshma Fatma of Uttar Pradesh, who survived an acid attack. The children will receive their awards from Prime Minister Narendra Modi on 24th of January and will also participate in the Republic Day parade. One policeman was killed and a civilian injured in a terrorist attack in Jammu Kashmir's Kulgam district on Saturday. The area has been cordoned off. The terrorist opened fire outside National Conference MLA Abdul Majid's home in Kulgam. Zahoor Ahmad Dar, posted as a personal security officer, was critically injured in the attack. He died on the way to the hospital. There is no respite from chilly winters for the people in North India. The mercury will continue to dip and moderate to heavy rains could occur in some parts of Uttar Pradesh in the next few days. Punjab, Haryana and West Uttar Pradesh and Rajasthan could see dense fog in the coming days as well. Leh has faced most of the worst with the temperatures going below -15°C. The finance executive who is accused an Uber driver of raping her in Delhi has asked a top New York lawyer to examine whether she can sue the app-based taxi service for negligence in the US. After the incident, Uber had announced plans to introduce background check procedures for its drivers, which will also include verification of character by the local police and checks to detect fraud in driving and vehicle permits. Time for a quick break right now, but coming up on the other side, the West African nations talk about creating a new military force to fight Boko Haram. More on that on the other side. Welcome back. Here watching the news tonight. Well, talking about Europe, which is on high alert now following anti-terror raids and arrests of suspected Islamist militants. More than 20 people have been arrested in Belgium, France and Germany, and security has been tightened in several countries across the continent after last week's attacks in Paris that left 17 people dead.
A day after two suspected terrorists were killed in Belgium, the country has announced new measures to deal with terrorist suspects. The new measures include making travelling abroad for terrorist activities a crime and expanding the cases where Belgian citizenship can be revoked for dual nationals who are thought to pose a terror risk. 13 people have been arrested on suspicion of having links with terrorist groups in the last 2 days. The entire continent is on high alert after increased concerns that young Europeans who went to fight with Middle East militants might return and spread terror. Spain is investigating the visit of one of the Paris gunmen, Ahmedi Koulibaly, to Madrid just days before the attacks. In Germany, police have arrested 2 men following raids on 11 properties on Friday. One of the men is said to have belonged to a group that was preparing a serious act of violence in Syria, even though there was no indication that it had planned attacks in Germany. In the UK, police have been warned to be on their guard for a terror attack against them.
We have a system in the United Kingdom where threat levels are set by the Joint Terrorism Assessment Centre. They're not set by politicians. They have judged that the threat we face is severe. That means, in their words, that an attack is highly likely. If ever there is an imminent threat of attack, it goes to the next level up, which is critical. But it's their decision, not mine.
The US has meanwhile promised to stand with all its partners dealing with the menace of terrorism and said it will do all it can to help France seek justice after the deadly Paris attacks. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
Well, on the eve of its foreign minister's visit to India, Sri Lanka has said good relations with India were a priority and it hopes to take bilateral ties forward. Sri Lankan Foreign Minister Mangala Samaravira will arrive for his maiden visit to New Delhi on Sunday. This will be the first high-level visit between India and Sri Lanka after the formation of the new government in the island nation. Samaravira is visiting New Delhi on the invitation of his counterpart Sushma Swaraj. He will hold bilateral talks with Swaraj while extending greetings from President Sirisena and Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe. President Mathripala Sirisena is to visit India on his maiden foreign trip next month. And West African leaders are mulling using a new force to fight Boko Haram insurgents in Nigeria. Ghana's President John Mahama said that the West African leaders are considering creating a military force to fight Boko Haram insurgents that have killed thousands of people over the last year. Boko Haram is campaigning to revive a medieval Islamic caliphate that is seen as the worst security threat to Nigeria. The West African bloc, known as ECOWAS, was also sought support of the African Union for the idea of a regional military force.
The sub-region has always been available to provide assistance to its member states, and Nigeria has always known that the sub-region stands ready to assist them in the fight against Boko Haram. There had been no specific request, and as you know, in international diplomacy, I cannot take Ghanaian soldiers and invade Nigeria and say we're going to fight Boko Haram. There are norms that must be followed.
The region has decided how they want to fight Boko Haram, and we support what decision they've taken. They are fighting Boko Haram. They decide on how they want to fight it. And if they need further help beyond the region, I'm quite sure that the AU will consider that.
Let's now get you more international news and updates in Global Buzz. Pakistan hanged the militant Ikramul Haq of a banned anti-Shiite outfit in the Lahore jail this morning. The militant execution was cancelled by the court but later reinstated. The hanging brings the number of executions to 19 that Pakistan has carried out since it lifted a 6-year moratorium on death penalty in terror cases. That action followed the Peshawar school massacre last month. South African nation Malawi is facing unprecedented flooding that has left thousands destitute. Floods in the country have killed more than 176 people and displaced at least 2 lakh people. Heavy rain submerged homes, schools, roads, crops and has washed away entire villages. A storm forced Pope Francis to cut short his visit to the Philippine city of Tacloban, which was devastated by Typhoon Haiyan last year. He, however, celebrated Mass with thousands of worshippers earlier on Saturday amid strong winds and pouring rain. He also met typhoon survivors and ate lunch with them. Well, time for another quick break, but on the other side, India to take on Australia tomorrow in their first match of the Tri-Series being played in Australia. More on that on the other side. Welcome back. You're watching the news tonight. Now, a shocking 225 acid attacks have been reported in India over the just last 2 years. Even alongside all the calls for increased women's security and rights and making things worse, the Indian law courts continue to hold back from declaring an acid attack a heinous crime. A report from our Policy Research Bureau.
Sonia once dreamed she would fly high. She wanted to become an air hostess and travel the world. But fate had other plans. Days before she turned 20, a monster in human form threw acid on her face. Life has been little more than a dark shroud since.
अभी मेरे को तो लग नहीं रहा है कि कुछ किया जा रहा है. अगर किया जाता तो जितने आप सुनने में आ रहे हैं केसेस ये बंद हो चुके होते. लेकिन अगर आप ये केसेस देख रहे हैं तो इसका मतलब आप खुद ही अनुमान लगा सकते हैं कि कुछ एक्शन नहीं लिया जा रहा है.
And there are hundreds like Sonia. Laws to protect them have proved ineffective and incapable. As many as 72% of acid attack victims are between the age of 17 and 30. The National Crime Records Bureau puts the number of acid attacks reports between 2010 and 2012 at 225. Activists say the actual number is far higher.
The prosecution to take the cases to the trial stage itself, I think that's a challenge. Takes a long time to make that happen. Then conviction, finally, people, the culprits who have perpetrated these kind of acts, they need to be convicted as per the existing law of the land, and that conviction is very less.
Not that nothing has been done about it. Stringent provisions were inserted into the Indian Penal Code to deter criminals. 2 new sections, Section 326A and B, were added to ensure stringent punishment for acid attacks. But despite the law, despite the Supreme Court's ban on the sale of acid, the fact remains legal orders have not been implemented on the ground.
कि जो भी एसिड खरीदेगा उसे 18 साल से ऊपर होना चाहिए, उसके पास आइडेंटिटी कार्ड होना चाहिए और स्टॉकेज के पास रजिस्टर मेंटेन होना चाहिए, मगर वैसा कुछ नहीं हो रहा है और आप जाएंगी कहीं से आसानी से मिल जाएगा. टॉयलेट क्लीनर के नाम पर तेजाब मिल रहा है.
And plans to put acid in the category of heinous crimes remain in the thinking bag. Pakistan introduced a minimum 14 years jail sentence and fine of 1 million rupees for convicts in 2011. Even Bangladesh has introduced the death penalty for acid attacks. The result, 75 cases were registered last year from 492 attacks in 2002.
हमने फास्ट ट्रैक कोर्ट की मांग की थी. फास्ट ट्रैक कोर्ट हमने इसलिए मांगा था क्योंकि मुजरिम को जल्द से जल्द सज़ा हो सके, क्योंकि जब हमारे पे अटैक होता है तो हमारे लिए कहीं ना कहीं वो सज़ा तभी से शुरू हो जाती है, लेकिन मुजरिम खुला घूमता रहता है.
The Indian government provides an ex gratia of rupees 2 lakh to an acid attack victim, which is considered far from adequate by victims and activists. A comprehensive relief and rehabilitation policy and jobs is the least expected, and a strong law to root out the evil. With camera person Ashwani, this is Anshu Jai Singh for Rajya Sabha TV.
Time now for all the news from the world of sports and Sports Beat. India will face Australia in the first match of the ongoing tri-series at the Melbourne Cricket Ground on Sunday. Ishant Sharma and Ravindra Jadeja will miss the match due to injury. India will be led by captain Mahendra Singh Dhoni, who recently retired from Test cricket. George Bailey will lead the Australian side in the absence of Michael Clarke. India's only triangular one-day series victory in Australia came in 2008. India missed out on the finals of the Malaysian Open Grand Prix Gold as PV Sindhu and Ajay Jairam lost their respective semi-final matches. PV Sindhu lost 19-21, 21-13, 8-21 to Japan's Nozomi Okuhara, while Jairam went down 21-10, 17-21, 16-21 to South Korea's Jeonhyuk Jin. South Korea beat hosts Australia 1-0 at the Asia Cup on Saturday. With the win, South Korea topped Group A and secured an easier path through the finals. With the 3 wins, South Korea will play either Uzbekistan or Saudi Arabia in the quarterfinal. Well, that's the news tonight. Good night.